Hi everybody, I am back. I'm Rachel Steininger and I'm here to talk about the third tip and third tension that we deal with when we're dealing with client service and trying to make client service our strategic advantage. So we've talked already about the nature between proactive versus reactive and how that's so difficult to multitask. And we've also talked about the tension between going wide and having a lot of relationships that you're covering and going very deep and having intimate knowledge of every single client relationship and having really deep subject matter expertise on the intricacies of each of those relationships. And how each of those are tensions that not only do we need to balance and be aware of, but also use in our communication with people in our support team, whether those are peers, a manager, or people that are supporting us that we delegate things off to. Having that tension in the back of our mind can help us have better conversations and have more impact and more value. So let's now talk about the third thing. And the third is really a tension between being very custom and personalized and having things that are very process-oriented and standardized. And I think at first glance, I would say let's put the standardize and process under things like wide or being very reactive. But I'm actually going to flip it around and say it's the opposite. So let me grab the whiteboard again. And let's write this one out because this one is not about impact or value. This one is about generating freedom. And this is the freedom to really see growth in your career, in your business, in your client relationships. So on this side, I'm actually going to say when you're very customized or personalized, it can actually hold us back from being proactive, okay? So when we're doing everything custom, we need to be very, very aware of whether that is a necessary customization, whether it is adding value or impact in the relationship, or whether it's just customized for customized sake. So I work with a coaching client and I work with her. She's in a service-related role right now, but she is trying to get more of the sales skills that she needs to add more value to her firm by bringing clients in. She gets recognized and compensated for bringing clients in, and therefore it's a skill set she wants to develop. But what ends up happening is because she's dealing with a lot of reactive things, she has a very wide account load, she also gets burdened by things that are very customized and personalized. Or what I will say is things that could be turned into something that's a process or something that's standard, but aren't. So for example, something very simple is a billing concern, right? When a billing concern comes in, a client hasn't paid their bill. Oftentimes the client service person is dealing with that. Even if the process is supposed to take place somewhere completely separate from them, oftentimes we're the one receiving the call about it and having to deal with a client who's like, well, I'm sorry, I can't pay a bill, or, this and this happened. And so if we're dealing with those sorts of things coming in, oftentimes we kind of need a place to put it, especially if we really pride ourselves on being custom and personalized. It can be really hard to send that person off into a standardized process unless it's very clear from a management standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, this is how we handle things. I was working with a client where we were doing a really complex implementation, right? We had all of these systems that needed to talk to one another, and I'm going to set this down for a second. When we got to a certain point in the process, there was a gap, and we couldn't automate the gap. I tried asking IT, and they're like, no, Rachel, we have too much on our plate, and there's no way we can automate that. The other option was to have somebody manually intervene and do all of the work, and it was going to take something like an hour every single day, and it was going to be super high risk. I can't even tell you exactly how high risk. It was crazy levels. And so we ended up finding a bridge, so to speak, something that would send information from one to the other. So not fully automated, but it didn't leave this huge gap. So the person who would have spent an hour instead spent maybe 5 minutes just checking to make sure the bridge worked every single day. So a couple months into the client relationship, I call up the client, I'm asking them how it's going and whether they're happy with things, what kind of feedback they have. And they go, you know what, we love the relationship manager that you put on our account. I'm thinking to myself, what? I'm the relationship manager. What are they talking about? I don't think I've done that stellar of a job. They go, yes, Dave, we love Dave. Well, thinking about it, I go, okay, Dave is the guy then instead of this hour-long process, he's actually doing the 5-minute process. Well, it turns out what Dave was doing is he was not like saving the time, right? Because without this relationship, he wouldn't have ever had to do the hour, or he wouldn't have even had to do the 5 minutes. But because we've created a process that made his job easier, that he just had to double check as opposed to creating and reinventing the wheel every single day, he was calling the client, he was being more proactive, he was talking to them about the activity in their relationship every day, he was talking to them about what they were going to do that weekend, and they loved him. He literally took a relationship that could have just been about process and procedure and control, and he turned it into something more. And that's really about giving somebody the freedom to do that. Because if we want somebody to be proactive, just like Dave was, just like my coaching client wants to be with her sales processes, or her sales outreach, sometimes we need the processes in place so we're not distracted by all of this other stuff to do. That when somebody's asking us to do more and more and more, but we want to have more impact, we want to provide more value, we need to give ourselves the freedom to do it. And that does not happen necessarily through giving custom attention and personalized attention to every single relationship. Sometimes it means creating processes everywhere that we can so that when we do go give the personalized attention, which we should do, it is actually adding impact and value. So between those two things, this is another tension to be talking about, again, with your support team, whether that's your manager, whether it's your peers, whether it is the people that you are delegating to ensure that processes are going into place in the right spots so that, again, you're trying to create that impact and that value in the relationship and eventually create more profit for your firm and more career potential for yourself. So use client service as your strategic advantage, but you have to have the conversations that this is not something done in isolation. It is not something done that just naturally prioritizes. We have to be aware of what these tensions are and how to use them to best create that strategic advantage in our career, in our companies, in our client relationships. Again, my name is Rachel Steininger. I would love it if you'd follow along as I give more tips, but please, if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I look forward to the next video. Thanks.